Let's get you a news break coming in on Israel's defense minister's latest statement indicating that we're nowhere close to seeing the end of this conflict. Israel's defense minister has warned that his military will now attack significant targets in Tehran today as well. Not just that, a direct warning being shot off to Khamenei, saying that he could meet with the same fate as Saddam Hussein, who, remember, was assassinated. Now, Israeli defense minister in that statement has said, remember what happened to the dictator in the neighboring country who took this path against the state of Israel. And much like America, Israel also is now urging residents of Tehran to evacuate, as he's warned that there will be more strikes in the coming 24 hours.
אני מזהיר את הדיקטטור האיראני מהמשך ביצוע פשעי מלחמה וירי טילים לעבר אזרחי ישראל. כדאי שיזכור מה עלה בגורלו של הדיקטטור במדינה השכנה לאיראן שהלך בדרך הזאת נגד מדינת ישראל. אנחנו נמשיך גם היום לפעול נגד יעדי משטר ויעדים צבאיים בטהרן, כפי שעשינו אתמול מול רשות שידורי התעמולה וההסתה.
Okay, so clear message there from the Israeli defense minister that they're not backing off anytime now, that they are going to continue significantly striking parts of Tehran and other parts of Iran as well. But a direct warning being shot off now to Khamenei, who is essentially the supreme commander in Iran. I'd like to bring in Pranay Upadhyay for more details. He is joining us with the latest updates of what's happening on the ground. Pranay, clearly the messaging from Israel is that the ultimate strike and the ultimate attempt is to go ahead and send across a message to the establishment in Iran. We've also got Gaurav Sawant and Sandeep with us. We'll go across to them in just a bit, but Pranay, to you first.
Absolutely, Akshita. If you see the messaging, but let me tell you the information, the latest information first, that just a while ago, President Donald Trump is back in White House. You know that he would be holding an important meeting in the Situation Room along with his security advisor and the top generals. There, the CENTCOM chief, Michael Kurilla, is also likely to join President Donald Trump in that Situation Room meeting. Besides that, you have heard President Donald Trump, while coming back from Canada to US, on board Air Force One, he had an interaction with the media, and there he said that my policy is that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, and we will bring it to an end. An end means complete end. This is how he phrased it. So what does he mean by putting an end to Iranian nuclear aspiration? US has already placed their B-2 stealth bomber in Diego Garcia with the most potent ammunition they have at Diego Garcia. And also, the Israeli military strikes are still continuing. So that remains a question, that at what extent they want to stretch it, at what extent they want to, go for a regime change. If they are saying, then what will be the shape of that regime change if US and Israel desires so?
You know, we've got a very interesting report also on how America has had a role previously in many, many such regime changes across the world. We'll get that report in just a bit. Pranay, I request you to stay with me as well. With the Iran-Israel war continuing for 5 days, all eyes now are on America, as Pranay told you. Why? Because of a dire warning from Donald Trump. Trump abruptly cut short his G7 visit to Canada in light of what's been happening between Israel and Iran. Add to that, he's made a statement that's got everyone wondering what Trump is up to. Let me run you through some of Trump's statements. In the last 24 hours, there have been multiple statements that he's put out where he's not just warned Iran, but also spoken of consequences. Now, there's a big question mark on why he chose to cut short his G7 summit trip. Remember that he's also said that he's assembling all his top officials in the Situation Room, the war room per se, in the White House in America. And so there's a big question mark on what Trump is planning when he goes ahead and calls this meeting, which has happened only in extreme, very, very different circumstances as well. Now, Trump has questioned Iran, saying that they should have gone ahead and stepped back. He's saying that there's no question of a ceasefire now, and has said that there will be an end, not really defining what that means. Trump says the world, Trump essentially what he says, the world takes with a bag of salt, because remember, he's made multiple such claims previously, including, of course, what you can immediately think of is his claims of having mediated a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. It has, for obvious reasons, everyone on edge on what happens next. Are we going to see America enter the Israel-Iran war? America stood rock solid with Israel, but so far hasn't engaged militarily. Will that change with Trump saying he's getting his top leadership together in the Situation Room? We'll talk about that, but first, here's a detailed report on Trump's many statements in the last 24 hours on this war.
The missiles and bombs striking Iran and Israel are being felt as far away as Canada. With the G7 summit being derailed after US President Donald Trump left early. Donald Trump boarded Air Force One a day earlier than scheduled due to the situation in the Middle East, emphasizing that he wants a real end to the conflict.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely.
While leaving, he dropped a hint, reiterating that Iran should have signed a nuclear deal with the United States and that Tehran must return to the negotiating table.
Look, Iran should have signed the deal.
If it would help bring Iran to the negotiating table, would you guarantee that the U.S. would not get involved militarily?
Well, I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something.
He had earlier countered Macron's claim that he would negotiate a ceasefire, saying something big is coming.
Israelis are going to slow down, or are they going to hit the accelerator right now?
Well, we're going to see. You're going to find out over the next 2 days, right? You're going to find out.
In a social media post, he also gave a call asking people to evacuate Tehran, stating that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Thinking on the call for Tehran to evacuate, is there a threat or is there incoming? What was the thinking on the full evacuation?
I want people to be safe. And that's always possible. A thing like that could happen. I just want people to be safe.
Asked if US involvement would destroy Iran's nuclear program, he hinted his hope that Israel would take care of it.
Do you think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program, or where's your assessment of that?
I hope their program is going to be wiped out long before that.
Trump also warned Iran against daring to strike American assets.
They're great people, they know how to protect themselves.
And when you say better, what's
We'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard, then the gloves are off so beautifully. Now, I think they know not to touch our troops.
Regardless of how things play out in West Asia, the President of the United States clearly feels he needs to be on home turf.
You do in Washington that you couldn't do in Canada.
Just be a little bit, I think, more well-versed. Not having to use telephones so much, because I don't believe in telephones. Because people like you listen to them. Yeah. So, being on the scene is much better.
With both Iran and Israel refusing to back down, the world now looks to US and Trump's next action. Will he be able to end the conflict, or will he light the match that will set West Asia on fire? Bureau Report, India Today.
So Donald Trump is currently in the White House. He's confirmed that he is getting together his top officials in the Situation Room. Why is that pertinent? What does it exactly mean? Let me explain to you what a Situation Room exactly is. It's a command center essentially used by the US president during times of crisis. We've kind of reimagined what the Situation Room looks like. You essentially have a conference table with top officials, the biggest names in America who take calls coming together in this very room. So it's used by the US president during times of crisis. He's the one who calls all of these officials together in the Situation Room. This is located in the White House itself. In the basement of the West Wing of the White House is where the Situation Room is located. Access is limited to just the top handful of officials of America, the president, vice president, the national security advisor, the secretary of defense, and other top officials, whoever they deem fit to be a part of these huddles. It's a nerve center essentially that's used for managing military operations. There have been instances of that in the past. National security issues are usually discussed in these situation rooms, and there are also intelligence briefings. Just to put things in context for you, it's extremely rare. There are about 4 to 5 times when you've seen the assembling of top officials in the situation room previously. It's equipped with extremely secure systems, intel tools for instant coordination as well, particularly in the case of military operations, to ensure that everything can continue seamlessly and real time. This is a room that was established in 1961 by the then President Kennedy. And after that, it's been used several times, particularly of late by Obama, by Joe Biden, by Trump as well. When was it used? It was used during 9/11 by Bush, during the Osama bin Laden assassination operation. At that time, Barack Obama was seated in the situation room along with a handful of senior-most officials during that top secret mission. And then also during Trump's tenure, there's been one instance of the situation room being used during Soleimani's assassination. That is the only time that Trump essentially used the situation room. So these are some of the instances in which it's been used. And the fact that now, Pranay, you've got Donald Trump going ahead and saying that, look, there's going to be a huddle in the situation room, seems to indicate that he's looking at, or rather willing to maybe take the next step, or at least send across that messaging to Iran.
Definitely a very strong messaging coming from President Donald Trump. You heard him on board Air Force One. Also, the very fact that he is straight away going to the White House Situation Room, having a huddle with his senior commanders and his now top security officials in the White House. This clearly shows that there is an indication and there is a strong messaging to Iran. What exactly US want to achieve here? What the messaging President Donald Trump is giving to Israel at a time when Israel is already carrying out military strikes, at various locations in Iran. So at a time when the conflict is intensifying, this meeting comes at a very crucial juncture, and President Donald Trump himself has said that something big is likely to come. What that big could be, if you see in conjunction with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statement that even Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is not out of bound, even Israel Katz, the Defense Minister of Israel, clearly stating that we can take out, we might take out the Iranian Supreme Leadership. So this is a clear and a big message which is coming out from Israel, and at a time when President Donald Trump has also indicated that he is up to something big. What that big could be, we do not know. But definitely it's a sign of worry for Iran and Tehran regime. So what is the situation, how its situation will unfold, we do not know. But certainly something big is brewing up, Akshita.
It depends really on how Trump really defines big. And with Trump, you really can't say what his next step will be. The fact that he's convened the situation room, asked his top officials to gather, all of that could just be symbolic, could just be an attempt by him to send across a message, or could be actually him getting ready to take a rather decisive step. Is that going to be military action? Who knows? But let's decode for you what really are Trump's options now going forward. If you look at it, and we'll talk about it one aspect after the other. First, as far as diplomacy goes, this is, of course, the first option, which is what the world would be pushing for right now. As far as coercive diplomacy goes, Trump could go ahead and put pressure on Iran, saying that Iran wants a deal and then pushing forward with that stance. And so you continue back-channel talks with Iran to try and see what really is the best-case scenario that can come off this conflict 5 days on. US can also choose to go ahead and respond to Iran, urging America to rein in Israel. Iran has been pushing for America's intervention in going ahead and sending across a message to Israel. Will America do that? They've been rock solid with Israel. So unlikely really, but they could go ahead and respond to that in a form of coercive diplomacy. Use threat of also using their bombs to pressure Iran, the GBU-57, which is being termed as the game changer. If they help Israel by offering this bomb, that could mean serious trouble for Iran. So they could use that to kind of ensure that whatever terms and conditions they want to put forward to Iran, that is immediately met. Reassure anti-war MAGA base of being pro-peace. MAGA, Make America Great Again, is of course the core voter base of Donald Trump. Many of them are saying, look, we cannot afford a war. It means serious implications for America. And so you send out a message that we're pro-peace by engaging Iran as well. But the risks here is that Iran could go ahead and say that, look, we are calling the shots now. We will not have any diplomacy. Then who do you have dialogues with? How does America engage with Iran if they're simply refusing to have any conversations? It's unclear at this point if Iran is serious about talks or if they're just buying time to see what they can do as a next step in this conflict and in escalating issues with Israel. So this is as far as coercive diplomacy goes and the risks, the gamble that Donald Trump will be engaging in if he chooses that. Second, military option. Now, if that happens and you see military action actually taking place, the first step that America will do, and this will be perhaps the most decisive against Iran, is to drop what's referred to as the Buster Bunker bomb. And that will target essentially the nuclear site of Iran. It'll be game over essentially for Iran. Trump and America has maintained all through that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. So it will be in line with that, but except now you'll be seeing military action as well. They can go ahead and support Israel by providing aircraft and bombs. So far, America, while they've sent out multiple statements backing Israel, they haven't really provided any sort of military aid. They could go ahead and do that in the days to come. Maybe that's what Trump is discussing in the Situation Room. They could continue rehearsing strike ops to keep troops ready. And what that also does is it also sends across a message to the likes of Iran that America could intervene, and if they do, it's bad news. So it's about the optics by going ahead with these kind of operations. They could give in to Israel's and also Hawk's call for action. There have been multiple calls within and outside, of course, from allies like Israel who've said America must intervene. Now, they could go ahead and call for military action, citing a reason, citing the fact that Iran has a nuclear stockpile. And like I said, White House, Trump has made it very clear they're against Iran having nukes. So they will say that we have intel of this, and so they'll call this the trigger. The problem, however, in that is remember what happened in Iraq. When America claimed weapons of mass destruction is there in Iraq till date, they still haven't provided evidence of that. So as far as military action goes, if that step is taken by Trump, let's talk about the risks like we did with diplomacy. It could spark a full-scale war in West Asia. Right now, you're continuing to see the term of conflict being used. It will be war, let's be very clear, if America steps in. It could also draw US assets away from Pacific and China deterrence. And so that's something that Donald Trump will be extremely wary of. It will mean that a lot more military assets have to be pushed into the Middle East, into that particular area. So we'll see if they're willing to do that right now. Let's get to breaking news that's coming in. And let's get you now a statement that's coming from the White House. There have been multiple nuclear threats from Iran, and now the White House has issued a statement saying Iran must never obtain nuclear weapons. US warns Iran against any nuclear ambitions and therefore reaffirming their support for Israel. They've said Iran's nuclear weapon pursuit is something we will never allow, we will stop. This is not surprising. This has been the stand of America. And this essentially, Pranay, has been the trigger of sorts for America to go ahead and, say and justify their backing for Israel, saying Iran cannot have nuclear weapons.
Absolutely, Akshita. Just a while ago, White House issued a statement stating that Iran cannot have nuclear weapon, and that is the stated line of President Donald Trump. You would recall, Akshita, that even on the day when he assumed Oval Office, the first set of executive order he signed also includes an executive order of maximum pressure policy against Iran. So thereafter, subsequently, President Donald Trump pursued this policy of maximum pressure on Iran. He wanted to have a deal with Iran, and with every statement in last 4-5 days, he mentioned that he given an ample chance to Iran to have a deal with the United States, but Iran failed because Iran wanted to have they wanted to exercise their right to have nuclear program, a peaceful nuclear program, but in the garb of that peaceful nuclear program, this is what the United States and Israel are alleging, that the Iranian side were preparing to have a nuclear bomb, and they were very close to have a nuclear bomb, and that was the reason when why Israel had to take this action. President Donald Trump has not only defended the action of Israeli Air Force and Israeli government, but also he did not deny that the possibility of US joining these operations.
Let's see if that happens. Thanks very much, Pranay, for joining us with those details. But let me just break down for you right now what exactly US's deployments in the Middle East looks like. We're talking right now about them ramping that up significantly, which we'll get to. First, let me highlight the current deployment in the Middle East, starting off with Qatar, where they have the Al Udeid Air Base. This is the largest US base in the Middle East. It's got about 8,000 personnel. It serves as CENTCOM's regional headquarters, which is Central American Command Center. It's a critical hub for air operations. Then you have Bahrain, which has naval support activity. It hosts approximately about 9,000 personnel, serves as the headquarters for the US Navy's 5th Fleet, overseeing maritime operations in the Arabian Gulf and surrounding waters as well. In Kuwait, there is the Camp Arifjan, a major logistics base. It accommodates various US military branches. So we're talking about the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, all of that in Kuwait in this particular camp. In Saudi Arabia, the Prince Sultan Air Base sees about 2,700 US personnel stationed, focusing on training, on advising Saudi forces, on protecting US interests in this region. Let's talk about the UAE. This is the Al Dhafra Air Base. About 3,500 US military personnel are based here. They provide critical ports for naval operations in the United Arab Emirates. In Jordan, there are multiple bases, but in all, if you look at all of the bases in Jordan, there are about 3,000 US troops supporting operations against ISIS, also helping in regional stability is the statement that's put out by CENTCOM. Iraq, they have Union 3 and the Ain al-Azad Air Base. Now, it houses about 2,500 US personnel. They have advisory roles, training roles to assist Iraqi forces. In Syria too, there are various outposts. Approximately about 900 US troops are deployed in northeastern Syria particularly. In Oman, there are two ports, the Salalah port and the Duqm port. A few hundred US personnel here who are deployed in Oman. So they have quite a bit of deployment in the Middle East. But right now, you're seeing America bolster that further. About 31 refueling aircraft. This is the KC-135 Stratotanker and the KC-46 Pegasus. Both aircraft are vital to US global power projection as well. They allow fighters and bombers to stay airborne longer and operate far from home bases. They have been moved to Europe, to the Ramstein Air Base and several other locations as well. Then you have the aircraft carrier Nimitz. It's a nuclear-powered floating airbase, essentially powered by two nuclear reactors, giving it virtually unlimited range, endurance without refueling for over 20 years. The US's Nimitz is a floating airbase because it's capable of carrying around 60 to 70 aircraft. It's headed to the Middle East right now, exact location not known. So let me bring in Sandeep Unithan on this broadcast as well to talk about this deployment right now. Sandeep, we're looking at right now US sending in some of its critical military infrastructure to move closer to the Middle East, towards West Asia. What do you make of this? Do you think that's a step that we could read as Trump, preparing for military action?
Well, Akshita, either preparing for military action or trying to contain the fallout of what President Trump said that something big was going to happen. And that suggests that over the last couple of hours, as you mentioned, the wave of Boeing aircraft, the Stratotankers, the mid-air refuelers that have been flying out of mainland United States towards Europe and closer to the theater of action. There is one carrier strike group that's already in the Arabian Sea. The USS Carl Vinson strike group is there. The second strike group is coming out from Asia. That's the USS Nimitz strike group. And of course, a carrier strike group, you just have to look at their deployments to understand where the United States sees is an area of concern for them. So you're looking at something like 2 US carrier strike groups operating in the close vicinity of each other. That's something like 150, 200 fighter aircraft from these 2 aircraft carriers, plus all the bomber assets that the US has moved into Diego Garcia. That's a formidable air force and a fighting force of something like 300 aircraft in total, not counting all of those aircraft that are already in the bases across West Asia. So the United States moving in clearly for something very big, either an offensive against Iran from the air or to contain the effects of what they believe could be an Iranian retaliation onto US bases, because Iran has so far not targeted any of the US bases in West Asia. There are something like 8 or 9 very key US bases in several countries that you just outlined. None of them have been targeted by Iranian ballistic missiles so far. There is a possibility that Iran could, if push comes to shove, actually start firing their missiles at all of those US bases. There are something like 50,000 US service personnel that are deployed in all of those bases. All of them could be at risk from these new Iranian hypersonic missiles that Iran has started deploying only very recently. So this could also be a protective measure to move in all of those ships there to prevent Iran from attacking all of those bases, Akshita.
And if Iran goes ahead and attacks any of these US bases, then I think it's very clear it will be a full-scale war, because there's no way America then will sit back and watch. They will be forced to respond. But I think one of the biggest talking points is about the Iranian nuclear facility, which sits about 80 meters underground. And Sandeep has, in fact, filed for us earlier a detailed explainer of how the bunker buster bomb could really be, the game changer as far as US-Israel's conflict goes. If US decides to take military action, the bunker buster is something Iran will be extremely wary of. Now, delivered by B-2 stealth bombers, its 60-meter penetration may not be enough. Without US support, a successful Israeli strike remains unlikely. So can Israel actually hit Fordo? Take a look at this explainer.
One of the key objectives of Israel's Operation Rising Lion, launched against Iran last Friday, is to target Iran's nuclear weapons program, to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Let's look at Iran's nuclear weapons facilities, nuclear enrichment plants where Iran is believed to be enriching uranium to acquire nuclear weapons capability. This is the Iranian capital, Tehran, at the heart of the country. This is one enrichment facility called Natanz. There's a second one here in Pars province. It's called Fordo. And there's another research reactor here at Arak. But Natanz and Fordo are very crucial because these are the two enrichment plants that Iran has been running to enrich uranium to approach bomb-grade levels. Now, it's really important for Israel, therefore, to strike at these two facilities. But there's an issue here. Now, while Israel has launched these attacks from over 1,000 kilometers away, Israeli fighter jets have flown all of this distance to attack various targets inside Iran, including the Natanz facility. It's believed to have bombed several such facilities, and Natanz is believed to be completely out of operation. Now, Natanz is only about 9 meters below the soil. The facilities are just about 9 meters deep. It's heavily protected, but the Israelis have the bombs to attack this facility. But when it comes to Fordo, which is the second nuclear enrichment site that Iran has, there's a problem, and I'll explain why. Fordo is, the nuclear enrichment facilities are buried under a mountain that's something like 90 meters deep. There's a mountain, there's a range of mountains in fact, and this is where the facility, the nuclear enrichment facilities are, the halls where the centrifuges that spin around and reprocess uranium hexafluoride, they're located 90 meters below the ground. It's almost impossible to hit this. In fact, the only country that has the ordnance capable of striking this deep is the United States of America. And the US has a very interesting weapon called the GBU-43. Now, the GBU-43 is a weapon that's about 11 tons. It's a high explosive. It is the most powerful conventional bomb ever produced. It's almost 11 tons of explosive. It's also called the mother of all bombs, or Moab. Now, this was used once by the United States in Afghanistan a couple of years back. And this weapon is, in fact, so heavy that it has to be flown off the back of a transport aircraft like the C-130, which the United States also possesses. Now, this is flown off the back of a C-130 and launched into the target. But here again, there's a problem. Now, the Moab can penetrate up to only about 60 meters. That's believed to be the maximum penetrating depth. And this was used, for instance, in Afghanistan to target ISIS Khorasan when they had burrowed into caves and they were living in cave complexes in Afghanistan. The United States had used it there. Now, it's very clear that if Israel has to stop the Fordo nuclear plant from enriching uranium, it has to strike at a depth of something like 90 meters. And that capability has been, that capability rests only with the United States. And even here, there are problems that it cannot penetrate this entire depth. But given the kind of ingenuity that the Israelis have demonstrated in the past, it's very likely that they could find ways around this. The killing of Hassan Nasrallah, for instance, in Lebanon, the Hezbollah leader, was one such operation where the Hezbollah leader was in a 6-story building underground, and Israeli jets flew multiple missions to strike him while he was there in his bunker. So possibly they could try something here similar, but with United States assistance. Israel cannot carry out the strike without this weapon, without getting it from the United States. Without that, its goal of putting Iran's nuclear weapons program back by several years, or indeed even destroying it, which is one of the key objectives of Operation Rising Lion, cannot be met.
So a very informative explainer there on how Israel could benefit if US takes military steps as well. It would prove the end of Iran's any fight back.